Yeah. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the Not So CEO podcast. I am your host, Brittany Antoinette. And today's episode, I have a lovely guest here. Her name goes by the Rebecca Love.
I love it. Yes, roll tongue.
And you know, like you just gotta roll your tongue.
No, I can't. That's not a strength of mine.
Rebecca.
But I will receive
just
your.
add a little sizzle to it, right? Thank you so much, Rebecca, for being my lovely, lovely guest today. I'm super excited. So for the first few episodes of Okay, let me redo that. So for the first few episodes of Not So CEO, I was, rocking it by myself, just one mic. Cause all I need is one mic, I need is one mic, okay? So I said, you know what? I think it's time to do a little interviews and whatnot. And I definitely felt compelled to reach out to you coincidentally, or serendipitously, actually. You popped up on my mind. And literally, my mom was like, yo, hit up Rebecca. Let her know you want her to be on the podcast, the talk show, whatever. As soon as I opened up my Instagram, it just so happened you was on live.
Yes.
And I was like, look how God works, right? or maybe just the frequencies in our iPhones aligning with our actual thoughts. I mean,
it could be both.
Okay, yeah. Could be. I can read your mind. Right? Okay.
Is that a bond?
It is.
Yes. He was a thing.
Okay. Okay. Now it's time to start playing. Let's get into it. So Rebecca is the CEO and founder of Organize for Love. And of course, it just so happens her name is Rebecca Love. So, I mean, even the name just sounds warm and yummy and like it. Honey almost. But I want to maybe just kick things off a little bit. And just before we get into today's episode, which is about the power of making space a ritual. And I wanted to, before we get into that, I want to maybe start off and talk about how we met, or essentially how we know each other, and how that has blossomed over the years. So I want to say that we met back in 2008, either 2008 or 2000. Damn, we old.
Was it Fashion Night Out? Am I making that up? It was before that.
Okay.
I feel like it was around that
time. So we met essentially through her fiance.
Husband, yes.
Husband. Okay. I know that's right. Husband. Okay. Husband. Let me get that correct. So my boy Shola.
Yes.
Shola and I worked together. We worked together at Zara.
Yes.
So I worked at Zara. Sheesh, this had to be definitely about maybe 2009, 2010.
Yes.
This was like around 2009, 2010. Actually, might have even been 2011. Possibly. When did we work at Zara? Because I'm just like
2011.
And this was a minute ago, because this is when the Soho store was near Prince Street.
Yes. No, I remember.
Yes. Oh my God, those days of taking the B train to Broadway and Lafayette. Oh.
I feel like it's definitely around like 2010, 2011.
Definitely a decade. Yeah. Definitely over a decade at this point.
When you say decade, I'm just like, let's calm down. All right. I don't know. It just feels different.
I done turned 30 and don't know how to act. Like I'm 3 decades now.
It's crazy.
3.
It's crazy when you like quantify it like that, like decade.
I know, a decade. Right? So we met. Of course, we vibed. The first thing I noticed about Rebecca, aside from her beautiful face, I was like, Rebecca the body, because Rebecca has one of the bangingest bodies I have ever seen, and I was just like, Shola, you got that, man. Like that's you. All right.
Thank you.
And since then, I have been able to take witness in your journey in creating Organized for Love, just seeing your transitions and being able to be in touch with you. that it's just been amazing. So we want to, start off the interview. I'm sorry, y'all, because I don't got these memorized at the top of my head. So for one, I want you to tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how you grew up a little bit.
Okay, we started this a little bit. So I'm from Staten Island, and we started this conversation, and they were just like, "What? Staten Island, New York, the Forgotten Borough, Staten Island, Wu-Tang." So my dad is from Brooklyn, and my mom is a vendor, and so she's been making jewelry since the 70s, and so a lot of I think my flavor, in addition to being a Staten Islander, comes from just being in the streets of Brooklyn, being at the street festivals for about 8 years or 7 years. I had a jewelry design business. And so all my creativity is just infused. And then I feel so connected to Brooklyn. All my friends from Brooklyn say I was a Brooklynite in another life.
That's all I'm saying.
So that's maybe what y'all was feeling.
Brooklyn, we go hard. That's all I'm saying.
But I grew up on Staten Island, and I do feel an affinity to Brooklyn, and so just being at the festivals, getting all of that.
Brooklyn sign? I don't even know. Do we even got a sign?
I don't think so. But I grew up with all that entrepreneurial energy, all that hustle and bustle, all that just creativity, making things work, building things, using your hands, setting up the table, connecting with people, all of that is infused into me, into my life. And that is some of the building blocks of Organized for Love. I don't mention that background when people ask me what made you get started? I'm like, well, it depends on when you ask me that.
Okay.
Or how I was feeling, because you may get a different answer. And so because we were already talking about where I'm from and you asked me, so I'm from Staten Island. Let's see. What was the other question? So where I'm from.
Where you from, and essentially, you went into it a bit by, sharing about your parents and their relationship, and pretty much you being inspired by their tenacity, their strength, and their ambition, and the culture of Brooklyn, which just, pretty much even inspired you to start your jewelry making business, which slipped my mind. I just went off and started talking about Organized for Love.
No, it's okay.
And it's crazy because we go through so many different avenues before we actually say as an entrepreneur, this is what works.
This is the one.
So let's maybe even just take a ride with you on your professional journey a little bit. Maybe talk about education, maybe even talk about how you started making jewelry.
Yes.
Into you creating Organized for Love and being a professional life organizer.
Yes. Okay. So a bit of my educational background. So I'm a first generation college student. So I've bounced around. I went to BMCC and got my associates in business management. Okay. So that I have that background because I've always had an affinity from just business. I found a lot of people who are in the entrepreneurial journey may not have the technical background or just that schooling. So I was really interested in that as a young girl. And then I have some background in gender studies and Africana studies. And so that's all when I'm talking about gender roles and classism and racism, that's all kind of being pulled from my educational background. And my jewelry design business, Charm Feathers.
Yes.
So because I was 100% inspired by my parents. My dad was a metalsmith, and my mom, she was a seamstress. She is a seamstress, a jewelry designer, and so it was a way for me to connect with my family as well. Starting jewelry, it definitely wasn't a life passion. However, I think for 8 years, I poured myself into it, and I think later, even what you mentioned, how we have so many different parts of ourselves, it was a morning when I had to release that part, and I'm like, move on. And I realized like, oh, it felt like it
Clearing
was like
space.
Yeah, it felt like it was like my identity, and I had to realize like, oh, it's not my identity. It's something that I did to connect with my family, and I was talented enough to be able to use my hands. However, I don't have to be attached to the way that I use my hands. So I had to mourn like releasing that. But I learned so much about organization from Charm Feathers, like just with systems and process, like business systems, business processes, working with others. Like I had interns.
Yeah.
We talked about making inventory. That's when I was really into productivity, studying David Allen.
Yes.
That's when I really was getting clear on just how to organize myself as an entrepreneur those years. So that was a lot of the foundation of what I do today with Organize for Love in terms of like on the back end and systems came from Charm Feathers. A lot of the social media, just organizing my just content creation, that all came from Charm Feathers, all of that. And this was that. Like this was over a decade ago. So
Sis
that's
been doing it. She said, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this.
I think at the time, to help organize myself, I think I made like a planner. I was like, oh, I got to organize myself. So I made a planner.
Yes.
So yeah, I
think I remember that.
Yeah. That was all Charm Feathers.
That was a moment.
We working on some things because I do love that productivity, all of that. I love that stuff. I can geek over all of that. The planner stuff, that's all me.
Love to see it.
So that's just a bit of my professional educational background.
For one, I love the fact that you made, I don't know how people say it. It's either a 360 or 180. I be seeing people get into this fight on Twitter and shit. Like
360 or 180.
If it was 360, then you end up at the same way. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But I find it just so astonishing how your family's history inspired your business, and you recognize that this is actually a part of my identity, but it's not exactly who I am.
Yeah.
And how you were able to release yourself from that in order to find something new that was true to who you were, and how your jewelry business pretty much was the building blocks for you to even get into Organize for Love. At what point were you in your jewelry business as to where you now seen that you were, or not even seen that you felt that you were making this transition, or you felt that things weren't working anymore?
When I didn't have the love to like reinvent myself or to see what wasn't working. Like I didn't have the love or the care to be curious about like, okay, how do I make this work? You know, when I see things aren't working and I have a certain goal, I usually like step back, evaluate, see what's not working, you know, take inventory. But when I stopped, like I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't have the love because I love looking at data. I love research. I love asking questions. But when I stopped caring to do that, or I just didn't have like, I didn't feel like it anymore. Wow. That's when I knew, I'm like, okay, this is not in me. And it took like a couple years. And I was on that journey with one of my best friends who was also a jewelry designer. And we were both mourning that this is no longer something that we have the heart for. Yeah. And it was like severing ties with that part of ourselves. So it was when I realized like, oh, I don't have the love to be curious about what's not working and how to make it work anymore.
Wow. And it's like when you feel that you're in this hamster wheel, right? Trying to figure out what's working, what's not working. And we don't normally use a loss of motivation as an indicator that we should stop doing things. Mm-hmm. We keep doing them, and we keep things around in our space when we know we hate them. Yeah. We know we don't like these things. And it's almost as if sometimes, you know, I walked away from, you know, a part of my business with running a creative agency, and I scaled back and decided to just be a consultant because I didn't want to limit myself to just one title. And I felt that I was boxing myself in. And what's so crazy is that rather than use this as an opportunity to beat myself up about it, I was able to say, this actually is setting me up for a whole new journey. Yeah. And I actually have something to look forward to now. So the next question, or the next thing I want to kind of get into, is talking a little bit more about Organized for Love. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was that once you noticed that your love was missing for what you did, I was like, how the hell can that happen? Your name is Love. Like, how can that happen, right?
Yeah.
Pulchritude, the epitome of, right? How can that happen?
Yeah.
I would love to hear how that breakdown created a breakthrough for yourself. Yeah. And essentially, how was Organized for Love born, and how are you operating now?
Yeah. Ooh, so like 3-4 part question. I do want to go back to what we were talking about, and I think there's a fear of how I think we're perceived about being consistent, and how we're perceived about like keep going. Girl, I am the master of letting things go. And I've also struggled with the fear of being perceived as like inconsistent. But baby, I realized like, oh baby, this is a strength. Being able to reinvent yourself is like, it takes a lot of courage, and it's really scary. And also I think we get so caught up of what we think other people want us to do, and also just thinking about other people also being attached to that thing and wanting to like keep it going for others. And it's just kind of like, what? Baby, first of all, people don't want us to keep doing things for the sake of it. So that's like one. So I was just thinking of like, how did I know I lost the love for Charm Feathers and what I was doing? So I will say it wasn't like a on and off, like black and white. Like, okay, I knew this. It was like years. I was probably doing the business for maybe 2 more years than I needed to do it. And one thing I remember experiencing is just like trying to connect more with my discernment, like being able to discern between, is this my fear of wanting to keep going, or not really being able to like commit and get over whatever hump, or is this me, fighting my own courage and boldness, and knowing my spirit, knowing that I needed to walk away. So just finding the discernment to distinguish the two, that could take time. And I think as I get older, that gets stronger. So it may not take me 2 years to realize, oh no, baby. Yeah. And I tap into that so much. So I'm so grateful for those 2 years, because it made me learn how I need to connect with like my gut.
Absolutely.
Right? My intuition, and just really be like, no, this feeling that I'm feeling is not fear. This is not self-sabotage. This is not me not unable to move on and just be consistent. This is like literally my spirit like, nah, sis, we good on this. You actually need to move on. So just finding the discernment, and it served me well. In the past year, in the past 6 months, I've walked away from like, I've made really big decisions that felt so scary that another part of me would have taken years to make, but I've been able to like cut down that time where it's like, okay, it's not going to take me years. It only takes me like a couple months. And I'm talking about like big decisions. I'm talking like those hard decisions, like literally your life trajectory changes depending on which direction you go. So those are the decisions. I'm not talking about like, what we going to eat, stuff, big things. So that was that. And then you can respond, and then I'll get into Organized for Love.
I'm just in awe right now, because honestly, the conversation is like, it's just flowing, because one of the things that we were going to get into is how to actually create a ritual out of creating space for yourself. And one of the things that I've heard you mention was using discernment to prioritize, right? Prioritizing your joy. And clearing out what works for you, and clearing out what doesn't work for you, but using discernment and discernment is something that a lot of us don't really, we don't really know too much about discernment. I ain't gonna front and sit here and give you a Merriam-Webster's dictionary meaning, so I ain't gonna do that off the top of my head, but what I will do is use my trusty friend Google here. Sponsor me, at me. And we gonna figure out what the word discernment means, so I can make sure that none of y'all trying to roast me underneath the comment.
Can I share a funny story though? I remember my first therapist ever. He said to me, he said, yeah, you don't have discernment. And I remember I didn't really quite
like douche, douche, douche.
I didn't
like,
know what
how's
it
that?
meant
Like,
at the time. And this was over a decade ago. I didn't know what discernment, like the definition, but I knew the way that he said it. I was like, I don't like how you just told me I didn't have something. And it wasn't bad or good. I just know that it was like a turning point where I was like, whatever it is, I'm going to go get it. Like, it was just like a moment because it just seemed like something I needed to have.
I got that S on my chest.
Yeah, based on the context of the conversation, I'm like, damn, I don't have it. Okay, I guess I need that. And so from then, it was just like, all right, I got to strengthen my discernment. So
for the folks out there who want to know what discernment is the ability to judge well. In Christian context, perception in the absence of judgment with the view of obtaining spiritual guidance and understanding. Without providing for a time of healing and discernment, there will be no hope of living through this present moment without a shattering of our common life. That was Google's definition, y'all.
thank you for that. I was trying.
Y'all liked my voice? Y'all like that?
Yeah,
I switched that up?
That was great.
I never see me do that again because I work for myself.
That was a great, like, now for a commercial. Now this episode is sponsored
You know,
by.
people used to tell me I could be like a dating line operator or like a sex phone operator.
I can see that.
But then it gets a little too hood because I'd be like, yo, that ass. And then like that starts coming out and stuff like that.
I love it. Right. No, discernment, man. It's definitely a muscle. It's a muscle to strengthen.
Yes. The ability to judge well. It is definitely a muscle because sometimes we use logic rather than going with our gut. And there's certain things that you just cannot explain sometimes.
Yes.
And how many times have you kicked yourself in the ass for something that has occurred, for something that, for an outcome that happened when you knew on the inside.
Girl.
Like,
he was like, yo, my spirit, I knew I should have
there's been times where my spirit was like, don't take this project on. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then guess what? My mind, my logic wants to sit there and try to reason, oh, they didn't give you any red flags. And then I get on the roller coaster. Head first.
But what about
red flags? Instead of Six Flags, red flags. That's where my ass be going.
This happens to me a
red
lot.
Flags.
Where I'm just like, nah, I can't take it. But I don't have the courage to say no, to walk away, right? Ooh. And so what happens, it ends up not working out anyway. So I end up, not all the time, but I end up not even having to like say no, right? Like they'll be like, oh, never mind, or something like that. And I'm like, oh, yes. So that happens a lot. Obviously, we're not dependent on those moments, but I'm like, it's also confirmation. Like, absolutely. Okay, I love that validation. Thank you for supporting me in that, because I didn't have the strength to do it. And then it reminds me like, okay, I can't bet on things not working out. I have to like, have the strength to be like, yeah, no, this we're not in alignment.
Yeah. I feel like there's a connection between courage. Definitely a connection between courage, a connection between that, consistency, honesty,
girl.
And just one of the things that I realized is that you have to be real with yourself more than anything when you get yourself into these kinds of situations. You want to be real with yourself. Not to switch it up too much, but I want to kind of just go back to one point before I continue with my questions. You mentioned something about consistency, and rituals are about consistency. But this idea of consistency is killing us, because this idea of, and I wanted to talk about this on another episode, which I will do, but the idea of doing something over and over and over again. And I feel like the standards of consistency now are changing, especially when it comes to the way that we approach business and entrepreneurship. Everything is about showing up in front of the camera. Everything's about making 7 reels and then having to be on those reels and point at the camera and shit. And I'm not fucking pointing at the camera. And this is not a dig at anybody. I promise it's not, but it's just what I'm not doing. And I feel that a lot of us are forcing ourselves into these irregular molds that we were not made to fit. And it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. And I even wrote this down. We're confining ourselves to buckets, content buckets, and timelines. Like literally, like we don't allow ourselves to even get inspired to do anything anymore. It's just our idea of consistency is so skewed that we just think that it just means showing up all the time. But what about when you are not feeling consistent? Like what I mean by that is what if you're dealing with some type of irregularity, whether it's your mood or, financial issues going on, physical issues going on. What if you are not physically well or consistent in that aspect, and then you still have to show up?
Yeah.
How can you be consistent when there's no consistency within yourself in your own life? And that's something I wanted to kind of acknowledge, because organization, there's a difference between getting organized and staying organized. So now I want to make this all about organization because, again, you were able to bridge that gap, right? You've seen that through entrepreneurship. You've seen that there are systems. You've seen that there are processes. In order for you to get to a place where you are leveled, where you are balanced, where you feel at peace, where you're serene, and where you're relaxed, versus operating in chaos, right? Now, whether that is you organizing a home or even going in and organizing a business. Sometimes we even have to organize our relationships. I know I've organized relationships before and have compartmentalized relationships before. We could talk about that another time. But I want to know just essentially, how did you get started? Once Charmed Feathers, you were able to say, you know what, this is one chapter. I'm ready to move on from this. And you are ready to begin on a new path and a new journey into now. How has that been for you? How has that transition from that aspect of creativity been into now creating a business that is built off of these systems and these processes in order to help other people clear their lives out?
Yeah, I love this. I love this transition. I want to say, I think the word system and process could be intimidating. And I think that may be a bit of the disconnect. People may have a system and they may have a process that they're following, and they may not see it that way, because process and system feels like a technical word.
Yes.
And it is technically, right? Like, let's look up the definition. And at the same time, ritual is also...
You want me to do it?
Please, with the voice. And then once you say the definition, and then I'll tell you.
This time. Don't come for me and don't say I'm culture appropriating, okay?
Okay, guys.
Okay? Don't come for me, guys. Okay?
I love the different pieces of you. Please bring
Ritual,
them in.
what is a ritual definition?
Ritual, process, and system.
Okay. Ritual. A religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order, relating to or done as religious or solemn rites. What's funny, right? And guys, no, seriously, I'm not appropriating. I have family in the UK, okay, British Jamaicans. Okay. No, because the people like to come, okay?
Oh my God.
So if you're gonna come get it. No, I'm just joking. No, only love over here. But I love the fact that ritual, from the definitions that I'm looking online, are all religious, like religious. And we don't really recognize how rituals are actually kind of like part of our daily religion on how we choose to live our lives every day. So we got the word ritual, right? And then we got process.
Let's do system. I feel like system.
System.
We gotta create a
Okay.
system. A system.
System. So let's debunk system. Okay. Am I doing my accent again? Okay. It's a noun. Okay. A set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network.
I love it.
A set of principles or procedures according to which something is done, an organized framework or method.
I love it. I love the word system. I love the way it sounds. I love the definition. I love applying it. Okay, so let's talk about Organized for Love and the transition. So one thing that I have always incorporated as a ritual in my life is writing. And I feel like this is feeling like deja vu. So I've always wrote. I started out in school, like I would get in trouble in class for like writing and stuff. I'll be in math, writing. So I've always written down things that I want to do, the way that I see my life, journaling. At some point, I probably had, like, by the time I was 20, I probably had about 50 books.
Wow.
That I end up sidebar. I ended up going out because I didn't have space. But that's another conversation. That's probably the only thing I ever regret.
Oh my gosh, you could have handed those down.
I think a friend, it was a friend of mine who she was like, yeah, you got to throw them out. So
no hateration in this dancery.
Yeah. So by the time I was 20, I had about 50. It was a huge box of books that I've had journaled, written out, just things that I've written up until that point in my life. And so that's been my ritual. That honestly as my life system, writing out my goals, writing out just things that I want to do. And so something that I do when I'm feeling unsure, confused, when I'm in spaces of discomfort, I just write and write and write and write and write. And so when I was working through that transition with Charm Feathers, it was just writing what I'm feeling. What am I doing? What is going on? And so it really helped me to realize okay, this chapter is done. And around that time, maybe before that, I had always written down that I wanted to do professional organizing and interior decorating. I didn't really know what that was. I just knew that I liked to put things in place. I liked to organize. I liked structure because growing up, I didn't have a lot of structure. And so that was something that I've yearned. And that was something that I think because it was such a big void, it was something that I feel my spirit looked for. And just it found me. We found each other. So I've always wanted to feel where I slept was home, and I never could really pinpoint what that was.
Wow.
Right? And so in a way, those two things started to merge. Where do I belong? Where is home? And so looking for those answers, and then also my just innate interest for organization, it was a journey of bringing those two together for myself. And so as I started to do it more for myself, I realized I'm really good at this. It didn't occur to me to do it for other people, but I just started to realize I'm actually applying what I apply now for people is something that I was doing for myself. But I was doing it, and we talk about mental a lot. I was doing it a lot just through writing.
Yeah.
It was I was just writing. And
writing
so
is a mental detox.
Girl, and one thing I did too, I would take inventory of what's all the shit that's bothering me and going on in my life. And so I would just do mind maps. And I would write them
I love
out.
a good mind map.
Yeah, so and I'm very visual too. So that was super helpful to help me take what I wanted to feel in my life, that order, and put it on paper. So I would just organize stuff through writing. That's how my organization really started. And so even before I realized that I wanted to be a professional organizer, that was the system. That was my life system, and that was kind of the system that I still use today. So around the time when I should have stopped Charm Feathers, this is a whole longer story, but I actually was evicted from my apartment at the time. I went through something really traumatic, and I fell into this deep depression, and I just was not able to maintain my rent. And so I was evicted, and that took me on a journey of, I spent about a year couch surfing, just living in different places and living in homeless shelters. I was just out and about on these streets, really trying to find my way.
How old were you?
This was I was 20. So this is this is all around the same time.
And you were going to school.
I was in school at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, this is when I was in BMCC doing my business management associate's degree. And so by the time I was evicted, I had accrued all of these tools and this skill for organization because I had been studying David Allen. Even though I was I think that was the time to stop Charm Feathers. I had accumulated all of this knowledge of how to just organize. I was writing, right? And so, interesting enough, all of those tangible skills I brought with me on my journey of couch surfing. And so that's when I was oh shit, this is why this is happening.
Full circle moment.
this is why I had at the time, and it's kind of making me emotional. At the time, it didn't make sense, right? And so I was trying to make sense of it, and I was like, oh, this is happening for me because I'm supposed to like help others through organization.
Absolutely.
Like I felt that at that time. I was like, oh shit, this is, because it didn't make sense. There was so many things going on. And I remember bringing all of those skills with me. And so like, how am I supposed to be a student while going through this?
You got all of this going on.
How am I supposed to? And at the time, I like got accepted to a study abroad program to study in India for 4 weeks. And I was like, how am I not going to disrupt my life, all the great things that are going on while this is happening? And so I use organization to like ground me. And how am I supposed to feel at home if I don't have one? And so that's when I started to connect with the concept of like home being a concept. And so all of these elements were being pulled together. And so that is why when people say you're able, like when you were saying how I'm able to connect organization and mental, because it was a mental process for me, organizing myself. And so, and through the context of couch surfing, I was able to now bring in, while I'm sleeping on this couch for this week or this day, how do I feel at home? How do I get what I need? And so I started to create these systems for myself and just think of strategies. Okay, I need access to my clothes 24 hours, but I don't have a home. Okay, so let me get a storage unit. Where do I get one? Okay, I have to find a 24-hour one, right? Okay, where's the 24-hour one? Oh, there's one in the city on 46th Street. Okay, so we go there so I can have access to it. Okay, so I have class on this and this day. I go to the storage on this day. I have my one bag on me. And if you've ever stayed in a store, if you ever stayed in a homeless shelter, you know, it's very inhumane. You're a number. And so one thing I realized is that I can lose my bed at night if you're not in after curfew, right? And so I was also working part-time. And so this is in addition to Charm Feathers, right? Because I had to get a job. And so I was like, okay, well, I need my work uniform. I need books for school, but I could also lose my bed, so I can't have too much stuff with me. You know, some people that are in a homeless shelter can get content. So you can see people with their lockers filled with stuff. And I'm like, this is temporary, but also they'll throw out your stuff. So my system was, when I go to my storage unit, I'll swap out my clothes for the week. Okay, I have this outfit for work. I have my books for school. I have this. And I was also tapping into what else can I do to make me feel good. This is what I describe as systems, because it was intentional, and it was a process that I practiced every week. And so I think, again, I'm just trying to show people like systems doesn't have to, like, it's technical, and also like you're probably following a system. And so this is how we can follow systems in a way that doesn't feel like, again, so intimidating. Like, oh, this is something I could apply. And so I also brought in like, how do I feel good? Because I'm going through this situation, but like, it's not going to take me. You're not going to take me down. So
you ain't gonna take me out.
Yeah, a part of my system was like, what makes me feel good? Well, I love lipsticks. I love jewelry. So when I would go to my storage unit, I would make sure I added lipsticks and different color eyeshadows.
Organizing and prioritizing.
That was literally the part of the process. That was like the system. And it was so intentional. Like, I wish I was being dramatic. Like, this was the way that I thought, and this is what I wrote down. And so this is literally like the beginnings of Organized for Love.
I needed this conversation. I'm just like floored, like astonished. Like, people have no clue where you've been.
Thank you.
But y'all can watch to see where she's going, okay?
Yes. So this was really like
cue the soundbite.
This was the beginning of Organized for Love. And again, I joked earlier, like, it depends on when you ask me or how I'm feeling, what answer you're going to get. Because it really is true. Like, sometimes the answer is different, because that story was a lot. And there's still more parts to that story as well. But that's like the brunt of it. And even thinking about like my childhood home, all of the things, I didn't feel that structure, right? I didn't feel at home. And so that was something that has always been in me, and I've always carried the curiosity and the yearning to create a home. What does that even feel like? What does it look like? Because I didn't know what it looked or felt. More specifically, I didn't know what it felt like. And so even growing up on Staten Island, I didn't feel at home. So like all of these things was kind of brought together through Charm Feathers, through me learning how to create systems. And then it all kind of, I brought it together when, I was couch surfing. And so that's like Organized for Love, the beginnings. That's the transition. So we can talk more like now into like where I am now.
Okay.
But I know you got questions.
Listen. Get in. Like, sheesh. Okay. So now that we know your start, let us know, where are you currently?
Oh, man. I'm honestly, what feels like another conversation. We're talking about like discipline, intuition, discernment. Imposter syndrome is like the wildest thing to me because it just feels so imaginary.
Yeah.
So what I want to kind of bring back to that, but where I am now, right now, I'm building a team of 4, which is is just wild. It's just the wildest thing to me.
Okay.
Because last year it was all about I, and this year it's like we, and I'm just like, wow, this is happening.
Yes.
So it's a 4 team, 5 of us, all women of color, and we're just bringing Organized for Love. I want to be, when Black people think of professional organizing, they don't think of, because now after Netflix shows, after the, Marie Kondo, that was the only way for us to be like, oh, that's what I do. And people are like, oh, because they could see it. I want now when Black people think of professional organizing, they think of Organized for Love. That is like, that to me, that's what I want. And so we are working on bigger projects. And so just transforming spaces and helping people to be creative, turn their homes into like their own creative studios, into spaces that like inspire them, into spaces that they feel confident in and proud of and can work in because we know what we're transitioning into. And so that's where we are now. Wanting to work with more brands, do bigger brand deals, and just be a powerhouse.
Yes.
Be the go-to professional organizing.
You got to speak it to
existence. Lifestyle
we need some
brand
yay energy
absolutely.
Right now. You got to say, I am.
Yeah, okay. I am the go-to.
Exactly.
Organized for Love is the go-to brand for home and professional organizing. Okay, thank you for that.
That's right. You got to affirm it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's where we are right now.
I love that.
Thank you.
It's definitely full circle, and just even hearing your story again and just even letting it sink in is just, I'm so grateful to know you, and just being able to see you overcome something, especially something like homelessness. I've never had to experience homelessness, and I feel that for you to be able to take something like that moment in your life and be able to turn it, something that is the definition of literally being able to take lemons and turn that into lemonade. Like, and your shit sweet, girl. Excuse my language. Yes. Excuse my language. A moment where it might have been a challenge actually was a pivot. And it's almost as if like you have to go through things in order to teach others. And you said that earlier. And I feel the same exact way. I feel like I get dragged sometimes because it's like, Brittany, you got to teach other people. Like you have to just be the example, unfortunately. Yes. In the sense of you're the experimenter. And I've accepted my role in society as an experimenter who just happens to be expert.
Yeah.
Like, you know, guys, that actually don't work. Let's try this.
Are you
know?
familiar? I know you. Are you familiar with human design?
I am familiar with human design.
So one thing that I have learned, and I'm just really leaning in hard. So as a manifester, I'm learning
manifestor
that
energy.
people learn the best from me when I just show up and do as me. And I'm like, and I have to think about the moments when I'm homeless, because I naturally think, like, that's how I naturally function in whatever situation. And so sharing how I'm strategizing and thinking, there's so much to learn. Like there is. And I'm just like, Rebecca, so sometimes when I like post something, I'm like, oh, that was too much. I'm like, no, girl, that's not your job to think about that. It's not. And it's hard for me because I know that a part of my job is literally to just share it, just do it. It's not how people receive it is not my it's not my
you're here to lead by example.
And so and just being the experimenter, being the one that has to go through it, being the one to share that like really, really uncomfortable thing, and just more than shake the table, right? Like we're from the inside out, we're really changing the way that we think and function. And that's not easy.
It's not.
How we think, changing how people think, like that's not easy. And so it could be so uncomfortable. But just learning about my human design and just like really leaning into like, baby, just say it. Just do it.
I love that you're into human design, because you and I could talk for hours on that alone. Like I'm literally... I recently got into human design like sometime last year and discovered that I was a generator. And as a generator, I cannot do anything for anyone unless I do something for myself first. And I literally light up other people when I'm lit up. Ooh. So it is my responsibility to make sure that I am motivated, to make sure that I am healthy, that I am optimizing at my best, because that is the only way other people are going to do it too.
I love that.
And I've noticed in my life when I am at my lowest, how many other people around me are at their lowest too. And how much I realize that I am a source and my energy is infectious. And when I'm high and I'm up, other people going to be high and up. And that's why it's important to even be responsible and organize my energy. But human design, another way, y'all. I'm going to do an episode. I can't say the guest. You guys will see who. But there will be an episode coming up soon, possibly next, on human design. And if anyone wants to even know a little bit about human design, there is this app. I think it's called My Human Design.
I love it. I have it.
I love that app. It gives you a breakdown. All you need to know is your birth date, your time, location, and you good money.
And a side note from that app, you can add loved ones, so you know they're human design, and you can add each other.
Can I tell you, it's gonna generational healing this year for me. When I mean, like, I literally, we gonna talk off camera. We gonna talk off camera. But what's so crazy is that I added all my family members on. Me, my mother, my little cousin, and my aunt. Come to find out, we're all generators. And my little cousin is a manifesting generator. This little boy, when he was younger, was into every single thing possible. It was like, yo, can he ever focus? But that wasn't the problem. He's good at every single thing he does. And that's manifesting generators. Like, you're a manifester and a generator. That together is a crazy combination. Right. So he was into DJing, making music, playing instruments, photography, videography, rapping, poetry, writing, marketing. Like, he's amazing at everything. It helped me even understand my mom more too. And ultimately, I found out we're all just alike. And the same issues that we deal with, that we be arguing, flipping out on each other, we dealing with outside external forces. And more than anything, we need to come together. Oh, which is so crazy. But this is gonna be a whole nother conversation.
Yes. There's so many self-conversations.
It's gonna be another conversation, okay? Yes. But my next question for you is, okay, why is organization important to the way we operate in our day-to-day?
A word that I've been connecting with this year is like ease and flow. And I feel like how we should be navigating in life just with more ease and more flow. And I think organization provides that like structure. Like, it's the foundation. And I think when organization and structure is the standard, you realize how much dysfunction, chaos, and you realize how much harder your life doesn't need to be when you just have like these basic standard systems that you follow, right? Like if you think about all the little inconveniences, all the little stressors and frustrations that
like
happen,
being late,
not feeling good about what you're wearing, what you put on. We can go on for that, like clothes and wardrobe. All of these little things, not being able to find something, like how it impacts
not eating
because
you need to be organized. When you're organized,
Planning.
you have your food planned, everything, the days you cook.
Being prepared as well, like what that does to your confidence. And I think when you add up all of the things that make you disorganized, you realized, or you may not realize, how it impacts your life and how it's preventing you from all of the things that you're trying to go after. It's like you are literally like you're hitting a wall, or you're making your life harder because just these basic standard things are not implemented, right? So like we said, just being able to find what you need when you need it. Being able to put on something and you feel good, like how this all impacts your confidence when you walk out in the world. And then not even forgetting like how the inability to recharge throughout your day. So you're just going every day not feeling good, every day feeling drained, because not only are you being drained or you're not being charged from the world, your home is also, you're constantly there. You're also
being drained at home. Like imagine going to work, you can't stand your coworkers, you can't stand your boss, right? And then just imagine overall now having to come home and deal with the same exact thing. Like going from chaos to chaos. Like, when at what point does your spirit get to feel settled?
And then you add in, you living with other people. So now it's other people's chaos too. And another thing, we all just little kids. We're all just like adults trying to be kids again. We're just trying to go and do the things that we liked as kids. And so there's so much like pain and frustration that comes from not being able to do the things that you love and enjoy, and how that's just like we're slowly being broken down from like just not being able to do the things that fill us. And so without structure and organization, you're not able to like tap into that, because you may not even be able to find the tools in your space. You don't even have the with how to go buy the products. You don't even have the energy, right? Like there's no space for you to just like tap into your creativity. And so like that day-to-day organization, that is where you're able to just, you have that standard. That's just the standard. And so now you can go just live life easefully without having to like fight life, because you don't have these things in place. So
live life easefully.
Easefully.
I love that. And I love that you ended on that note, because my next question is, what is the connection between our mental clutter and our physical clutter? And what do we define as clutter? I'm not pulling out Webster's again,
y'all. So mental and physical clutter.
Well, maybe let's start off what we define as clutter.
So clutter. So there's mess and dirt, and then there's like clutter.
Okay.
So clutter is when there are things that are out of place. That's like my short. That's my short. Things that are out of place, and in places that they don't belong. Ooh. So that's like my definition. Very short. I would love to see I would love to see what Webster says, just to compare.
I like your definition better though.
Yeah, very short.
I do like your definition better, because now I'm able to now I'm thinking things that don't belong in certain places.
Yeah, just
even thoughts.
Yeah, things that are out of place. Mm-hmm. And so this is the thing too with clutter. It could be relative, right? Because say your style is what this is, max minimalist, right? You like a lot of things. To minimalist, it may be cluttered, right? But to you, it's like, oh no, it's in place. So clutter could also be relative to like to some spaces. It's like, oh, it's cluttered to me. Other people are like, oh no, it's organized. I'm like, okay, girl. Yes. So that's another thing too. But I think a lot of things could be relative. But that's a side note. That's the nuance me. I love gray area. I know people love black and white.
I like that though.
I love gray, baby.
I like that because sometimes things are not always black and white. Yeah. Sometimes it's not.
I don't think things are really black and white.
It really is.
I feel like we really navigate from a black and white society. I'm like, where is this black and white? I'm so confused.
Or black and white. Maybe we don't live in an or society. Maybe we live in an and society.
Black and white.
I know that's right.
So now, so that's the definition of clutter, things that are out of place.
So now we have the physical clutter. So now we know clutter. So
that's clutter. That's clutter.
Now let's go into mental clutter versus physical clutter.
I would say mental clutter is when you are thinking about things and when things are in your mind that aren't like in front of you or that is not, you're not currently like addressing. So maybe you're thinking about something in the future or you're thinking about something.
That's kind of like anxiety almost. If I'm not mistaken, anxiety is when you are thinking about things that have not occurred yet.
That's exactly.
I think depression is being stuck in the past versus anxiety is being too focused on the future and things that haven't happened yet.
I kind of cheated and I did pull from that.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So I do think of mental clutter because when you think about like all the things that you're thinking about,
it's like a never ending to do
It's
list.
like anxiety and it's just like past, present. And so that's why I led with mental clutter is like when you're not focusing on what's right in front of you. Because everything else is like
it's hard to focus when you have a bunch of things in your background. Like it's I can definitely attest to that. It's very difficult for me to even just go through my emails. I might just have 5 emails for the day, but I can't do it because I have 10 million things on my mind, and then I have 10 million other responsibilities, and I have to balance.
Yeah.
And I don't want to even get into this because that's one of my questions, and I want to keep it juicy. Okay. I want to keep it juicy. So physical clutter now.
So physical clutter, again, things that are out of place.
So going back to it's like just it could be anything, objects, just
things that
not a mess necessarily, but just things that just are misaligned and out of place.
I think dirty and messy could be where it's like physical dirt, so like dust, crumbs. Like a place could be cluttered, but it's not necessarily dirty or messy. But mess is where it's like it's not clean.
You know what? And I think a good definition of that is, and I'm going to just say this.
Go ahead.
Us as a group of people.
We a mess?
No. For some reason why, and I don't know if this is a black thing. I don't know if this is a West Indian thing. And I know y'all know what I'm about to say. Why we got so many figurines? Why do we need a picture of Obama in the house? Why do we need like 5 sets of china that we're never gonna use again? Why is there still plastic on the couch? Why? Why do we have a whole armoire of silverware we are never gonna use ever in life?
Girl,
I don't know what it is, and this is something that this is just a community thing. This is a cultural thing at this point, because I can go to a Guyanese person's house, I could go to a Jamaican's house, I could go to a Haitian person's house, I could go to somebody's house that's from Louisiana, and this is just something that I like, our relationship between having a lot of things. Like, I just think there's this thing of having a lot of things, and maybe this is something that goes a little deeper. Maybe this is something that's a bit more traumatic. I read somewhere, and I forgot exactly what it was, but I think it was somebody that was from the Holocaust, because of the fact that they, dealt with, being starved and famine, forced famine. Food rationing was something that they carried with them into life. Like, they still ate like they were in a concentration camp 40 years after. Wow. So I'm just now wondering, like, maybe our need to keep things and to hold on to things, like, maybe this is a lot deeper than
than just, oh, there's a bunch of stuff in my house. Like,
for sure.
I'm really starting to feel like there's a spiritual connection between us having and keeping and holding on to things and not being able to let go.
For sure. It's definitely generational.
Whew.
It's cultural. And which one do we want to start with? I mean, we could have a whole episode.
We really could.
We could have a whole separate episode. So I will say there's definitely a connection with Black folks and not having. And then once you have,
It's like an excess.
yeah, it's almost to
Hoarding.
It's definitely to overcompensate. And it's also,
I like that word,
yeah,
overcompensate.
it's
Because you I love where you're going with that.
yeah, you got to feel the void of never having, and then also the fear of not wanting to be in a place where you never have. So it's like, if I have a bunch of stuff, then, you know.
Definitely fear inspired.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now it's almost as
Yeah.
if like hoarding is definitely, I would say in this, it can possibly be inspired by fear. The fear of not having enough, the fear of never having something again, the fear of losing something. And maybe that's why it's so hard for us to actually clear space, because we think that going without, sometimes holding on to things, no matter how horrible it is for us, no matter how bad it is, we would rather hold on to it than let it go.
Yeah, I do think there's definitely different levels. Some people are not diagnosed as hoarders or having that condition, and some of us, we overuse the word. So it could very well just be like you don't know how to let go things. And then there's people where it's like you actually have the condition. I think I think a lot of Black folks are probably underdiagnosed and will never actually be able to confirm because they won't go through with the process. Because there's the additional fear of, I want to, keep these things. And there's so many different reasons people don't let things go.
I know your job.
Very
I know your job is challenging, especially when it's like, girl, I'm throwing this out.
So here's a misnomer with professional organizing and for myself. So I don't work with people that do not want to get rid of things. And that's from the beginning. That has always been like, that's like the basic. Like, if you don't want to let go things, that I'm not the service provider for you, because I'm not in the business of telling people what they want to do. Like, I'm in the business of wanting to help you transform your life and your space. And so if you don't want to get rid of things, and for whatever reason, like that is your life, and I'm not here to like interject what, because it's definitely like it's a 2-person job, and yeah, it's a 2-person, it's a team effort. And so my job is easy when people want to get rid of things. So that's something that a lot of people are like, ooh, I know an auntie, a grandma. I'm like, well, do they want to get rid of things? Because if they don't, then I'm not the person for you. But yes.
I mean, so we know when we ready to clear our lives of the BS, we know to holla at Rebecca.
And I'll also say I had a client that I absolutely adore. I do help people help their parents or elders as well, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea is that person has to want it though. So like my client was the child.
Yeah.
So the child hired me to help their parent. So I do that. It's just the parent has to want to get rid of things. And, so that's very, very important. And again, I work really, really well with family dynamics and just being able to like walk people through, because I've lived it, I've experienced it, and I've had enough clients to be able to say like, okay, this is where we're going to create this boundary. Do you want a more functional space? Then this is what we need to do. And okay, you love these. All right, so it's just about like the negotiation. So I work very well with that. I absolutely love
that.
Working with families and child-parent dynamics.
I think I'm gonna have to hire you, because I remember going through the fridge years ago at my grandfather's house, and I threw out seasonings that were expired from 20 years prior, and salad dressings and stuff. And he's like yelling at me, "Don't throw this out. It's still good." I'm like, Grandpa, it is 2015. This expired in 2008.
Again. Grandpa has to want to.
I'm just saying.
But no, yeah. So
like, why are we still holding on? Throw away that oregano. It's oregano at this point. It's oregano at this point. Throw that shit out, okay?
Oregano. To the no.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's so crazy because those are like the little nuances. I'm pretty sure everybody, because I actually seen that on a Twitter post too. Like somebody's like, why is my grandparent cursing me out for rearranging their cabinet? Like one of my girlfriends told me that her grandmother like kicked her out the house or was trying to kick her out the house because she threw away her pots and pans. She's like, girl, this pan is from like 1865. Throw it away.
It's
like,
so funny.
Make space. And you know, older people sometimes they go about the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Or if it's broken.
No, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. But the thing be on its last damn leg.
Okay, so here's the thing.
I'm just saying.
I agree with you. I'm on the same page as you, and it's almost just like you have a family member like, ooh, girl, if you just had a therapist, this would just be so like this. All your problems will be fixed. Like this is above me. I'm pretty sure if you talk to a professional,
therapy 10 out of 10 recommend, especially for you and your family.
So it's organizing. A lot of Black people want to use it that way. It's like, ooh, girl, if I could make you go to therapy, I would. But you can't. You can make somebody go to therapy, but if they don't want to show up to do the work.
Absolutely.
And if they're not sick and tired of not addressing things enough to talk to someone, then they have to get to a point where they're sick and tired of it to seek help, just with a space. So if granddaddy is not sick and tired of forgetting something enough to seek out help, you can't make him seek out the help. And so that's
sick and tired of being sick and tired.
You gotta be sick of your shit, and you can't make someone get there. So that's
like,
that's
I'm
really
ready
important.
to cut myself off. You know, you ever get to that point where you ready to cut yourself
I'll be
off?
like, yo, I'm fuck. Yes.
Like, girl, I'm about to throw you away with everybody else I just threw away. You have to go too.
Yes.
In the garbage you go.
Yes.
I do have a couple more questions.
Okay.
So, cleanliness is next to godliness.
Ooh, girl.
So they say, right? How do our physical spaces impact our mental health? And why is making space necessary? And I know we kind of just talked about it a little bit, like, you know, it makes your life easier and whatnot. But I want to kind of touch on the spirituality aspect of it, because one of the things that I naturally do, or what I've learned to do, my boyfriend, he inspired me to do this, is when I can't think, I clean. Because there's just something about moving things and taking it and putting it back in its place and aligning things that makes me feel a lot better. And I can actually go back to my to-do list and do things. But you can't really do much of anything when there's a bunch of stuff around you. I'm not saying you can't be productive in a space that might be cluttered, but I do want to maybe touch on that. And because you're one of the very first, or one of the only professional organizational experts who connect the mind in physical space or physical matter. So I want to touch on that.
Thank you. I'll speak for myself and my space, because I love this topic of like cleanliness. So for me, I'm a visual, I visualize things and I bring visions to life. Like that's like my gift. And so when my space is cluttered or not clean, it's really difficult for me to connect with that gift of mine. And it's difficult for me to like just to channel, you know, be a vessel.
Oh, I love that.
I think that clarity that I need, that clean slate that I need in my head, I want my space to match that.
And especially on the inside.
And so if my space isn't clear, it's very challenging for me to like tap into like my highest self and to just do that important work. I find this for myself when I need to like get work done, or if I'm working on like a client proposal, or, you know, whatever step I am in a client process that requires me to like visualize, right? It's that much harder. Like I don't feel inspired. I'm distracted. I can't think straight. And so there's definitely a connection between like your space needing to feel good for you, feel comfortable, and and being able to like do whatever you need to do in your life, because that is it is a distraction.
Yeah.
It is a distraction, and it deters you from whatever important thing you need to do. Nobody wants to spend their whole day not being able to get what they need to get done because their house is distracting them. That's
and
the
it definitely
worst.
can be a distraction.
For
I mean, I know
sure.
I cannot. I mean, looking at a sink full of dishes, it kind of like there be some nights where I'm too tired to cook, and I'm just like, ooh, I really don't. But you know what? It's almost like ritualistic, but you feel so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what is it when you come home from a long day and you just like, you have that sigh. You just walk in your space and you just like get this warm hug, like,
yes,
just welcoming you.
I love that because it seems you said this earlier about having a home.
Yeah.
And just because you have a house doesn't mean that you have a home. And I think that is, you know, it feels good to know that you have a place that you feel welcomed. It's a place that you could rejuvenate, a place that you could recharge, a space that you could laugh in, experience joy in. And sometimes our houses are just places that just hold things.
That's a
bomba.
Right? Right.
Yes.
Like, what? No, but seriously. And sometimes our houses are just spaces for storage. And that's why it's not a home. Because a home is filled with love. A home is filled with laughter. A home is filled with all of these different things, like wanting to go home versus having to go home.
Ooh.
Right?
That
like,
whole
I can't wait to get home. One of the things I want to ask you is, how can we make clearing space a ritual? How can we turn this into something as to where we are clearing space naturally all the time and being able to tap into that level of discernment to be able to prioritize as to what goes where, how to compartmentalize things, and not only just physical space. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize relationships. Sometimes you have to compartmentalize your goals, your to-dos, and prioritization. That is a whole nother topic.
Yes.
Because you can have a whole bunch of things on your list, but I feel that where people get overwhelmed, especially myself, is when I look at this list of 50 things, it keeps getting longer. And I just can't, I check shit off and 5 more things come on. So how do you get to a point where you can just make clearing space a ritual as to where it's almost a routine?
Yeah.
Like you brush your teeth in the morning.
Yeah, I love that. So we go back to the ritual of writing.
Yes.
Writing down and continuing to, I think, investigate the things that you need, the things that feel good. A lot of times I write down, like, what do I need to fill my cup? Like, what are the absolute things that I need? And so being able to, like, identify those things, when it comes to your home, like, what's important to you? We're talking about, like, making a house. A house is not a home, but certain things to some people don't feel like a home. Like, we all don't feel the same things when it comes to a home. So just really, like, investigating, like, what are the things that you need to feel good at home? Because people don't take the time to discover that, to learn that, and just, like, write them down.
Yeah.
Like, document it so you know, and then actually do it. Like, for me, I love waking up to a clean kitchen. Sometimes it's not always clean, but, like, I try to prioritize, like, having cleared counter space. Baby, I cannot stand things on surfaces that I want to see clear surfaces. So this is something that I know, my husband knows. And so being able to, like, put things away. And also because I know that I like clear counter space, then I'm able to work through, if I keep putting things on the counters, do these things not have homes? I need to figure out
I love that.
How to get these things homes, because I'm finding myself keep looking at it. So then you're able to go on you're on a journey. You're discovering, like, this is how you investigate things. That. I like clear counters. Okay, I'm always putting this here. And so I'm able to, like, I always put my phone on the counter. I need to figure out a new home for it. And then committing to that. So, like, that's just one way to, like, literally investigate you document what you like, and then you work it out and then figure out what works, what doesn't. And so it's really like a journey. I think that is something I do, and it works well for me.
Of course, starting off taking inventory,
Taking inventory,
as you say, taking inventory, which is something that I try to do at least at the top of the year. But my method of inventory is really just seeing what aligns with me, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, who, what, where, when, why, who is associated with what I have to do. When does it happen? Ultimately, how do I feel about it at the end of the day? And that's what you have to come to. I actually did a workbook, and I kind of created a workbook called a blessing, or is it a blessing or a block workbook? And it kind of is like an inventory checklist, but basically what you do is you write down everything you do every day. And then what you do is you write down who's associated with what you do, the frequency of what you do it by, and then ultimately, how do you feel? And is this a blessing or a block? Ooh. So the whole end of each thing you do is to actually make you think like, is this a blessing in my life or is it blocking me? And by the time you actually are done, rather than just writing down what you have to do and what you even have to categorize in what do I want to do versus what I have to do versus what I don't give a fuck about versus what I do give a fuck about. And that's the way that I've been approaching things later to, but of course prioritization is the key. But I also want to ask you. I love
that. I need that workbook. Is it for sale? Like,
what? Girl, it's free $99. I send it to you.
Oh my God. I'm definitely gonna. That sounds like amazing.
I will show it to you because I have another exercise that I think you would really like, especially because of the fact that I feel like you are also analytical and logical as well.
So analytical.
I have another exercise for you that I think you're really gonna like that my therapist kind of went through with me.
I love that.
It was amazing. So I have a couple more questions. Okay. You're a new mom and a wifey, right?
Honestly, it's crazy.
You're a mommy and a wifey.
I have a daughter.
You have a daughter.
That changes like the whole everything.
Daughter. Like I can just imagine like the internal level up, like of having a daughter, of what that does for you.
It's so fun. This is a funny topic to me because I made this reel. How people say like after you have a kid, like you look different. Like, wow, baby changed you. I'm just like, this little girl didn't do nothing. She just got here. I did the work. So it's just so funny because with money and children, I feel like they just make you more of who you were before.
Yeah.
To me, this is what I think. So I feel like a lot of the things that I was doing before, it's almost like I decided to become more of that, like, after the baby.
Wow.
Because I could choose to, like, not step into that either. Like, whatever I was, like, saw myself or goals or just wanting to do, it was just, like, I was working on it. And then after the baby, it was like I made a conscious choice. And so there are a few factors. And it's not about me being like, no, it's not the baby. The baby didn't do nothing. Because that's not true, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A lot of the work started before she came. And so I think that's like really important. Like I didn't just have a baby and like become something new.
Yeah.
Like it's like.
You already were. You were becoming.
I was becoming. Yeah. And so like a lot. So it's like, I feel like it's misleading. That's what I feel for me. Like after a baby, then I just became this new woman. It feels incomplete. Yeah. You know what I mean? So a lot of the things I was already working hard on them, like hard. Even during the pregnancy, like, I was working hard. Now.
You were so cute pregnant.
Thank you.
Adorable.
It was cute. It was a moment.
It was a moment for you. It was definitely a moment.
You
and Shola's pictures was just like, of course the photographer and the photographer's wife is always going to look good. Of course.
But I think what I love about having a child that has done for me is just like, I'm just like, wait a minute. You can't talk to me like that. Like, I'm a parent. Like, it's almost like before I was a kid and, I know as like millennials, sometimes it's like, we were taught like you respect your elders and sometimes it's hard to like address certain, people that are older than us. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful. Like we still have that in us, right? Even if somebody needs to hear something, Now, though, I think it's like, oh, no, you can't. Like, it's a different, like, oh, no. My level, the things that I'm going to tolerate, it's like you can't. It's like,
it's a
I
whole
feed
level.
somebody. You know, I think it's like, I am responsible for someone's life. So you can't. And that's for everyone and everything. It's just, that is.
It's like the audacity.
Yeah.
It's the audacity. So
Yeah.
also
So
just
that's
to
changed.
ask, like, how do you create better balance though, but between entrepreneurship, family, and self-care? Because you're not just a mom, you're also a wife, and you're also a business owner.
With the team.
With a team. Now,
It's crazy. I mean,
there are these sayings around on, all over the internet about a woman not being able to have it all. Being able to have the family, being able to have the business, being able to have the career. How does someone like you, a professional expert organizer, manage to successfully balance these very different but demanding areas in your life?
All right. So we can talk for hours about this, but I want to just highlight 2 points. So Shola, my husband, he is very much like, you can have it all. That's his that's his mantra in life. So
Love to see it.
before I even came into like believing that, he's always been like that. So he'd be the type of person where it's like, I want to do this. I'm like, baby, that's too much. He's like, no, you or nobody.
We love a black man with an abundant mind. Can we get an amen?
I've learned you can have it all from him. And even this year is when I wrote on sticky note in my mirror with my other affirmations, like, I can have it all. Because I didn't believe that. And I'm like, and I always would abide by Oprah's saying, like, you can have everything, just not at the same time. And I really felt that. But I don't necessarily follow that anymore. Like, what we say is
your
like,
own mantra. Y'all making your own mantra.
yeah, it's like, oh, I can have it all. And so one thing that a second part to that answer is like, I'm loving like the soft lifestyle.
Yes.
# soft life. So this year I've been leaning into like ease and like what that looks like, what that means. And so what I realized for me, having it all looks like is like ease and abundance is not like mutually exclusive, because sometimes I've ran myself into the ground trying to have the harmony, have everything, and realizing like I have to, I have to burn myself out in order to have abundance. And so something that is kind of answering what you're saying is like, no, I can have it all. I can have ease. I can have abundance. And I'm just arriving here though. Like, this is not.
She's arrived.
Yeah, no, we're arriving where I'm like working through like, what does it look like to have it all? So for me, that's restructuring my schedule. This is the days that I work. This day is meant for family. And that's really hard because it's just creating boundaries and
the B word.
Yeah, creating boundaries when it's just like, okay, this is day for family. No, I can't do client work on this day. No, I'm not available. Yes, I am available. So I'm still working through that.
I love that.
Right? So, and I kind of resent just a little bit, this idea that like professional organizing is like this, like, not perfect, but it's like, having everything together. That's why I'm always so big on like sharing, like, oh, nah, B. No. Everything's not. Like, it maybe it looks this way.
We know you from New York. We know you from New York.
Thank you so much.
I feel like the Staten Island people be feeling like they can't claim New York City, but it's just be the other New York people.
It's not that we feel like we can't claim. Y'all don't let us claim.
Because y'all so close to Jersey. Y'all so close to Jersey.
We are very close to Jersey.
It's like a whole nother world.
I'm starting to feel like y'all mad about that. I am. I am. Like, there's some jealousy that we have access to New York, the city and Jersey. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just
the balance. We jealous of the balance. Like, I could go back and forth between the suburbs.
I could leave my house at 11 o'clock and I'll get to Columbus Circle at 12:15 or like 12 o'clock. So I feel like it's like I'm in Brooklyn. No, maybe.
Listen,
no? Okay.
I feel like
an hour transportation.
The ferry is a nice ride too.
She said
it's a nice ride. It'd be brick. It'd be brick in the wintertime.
But no, so In terms of, I really do, I grew up with conflicted feelings about Staten Island, but I actually absolutely love our neighborhood. I love our building. I love our apartment.
It looks gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah.
BTW.
I'm definitely, I'm definitely like, I don't have the same feelings that I had growing up. I'm like, yes, I'm from Staten
You have
Island.
have a home.
Yeah.
Now you have a home that you've created, that you've been able to manifest, and you can have it all.
Yes, I really do love that saying. Yes,
I love. And shout out to Show Love for
Yes.
for that saying. Like we stand a black man that can affirm that we can have it all. Okay.
Yes.
So couple last questions. What are 3 practical and proactive ways to begin clearing space in your life today?
Because it's a big one, choose one item that you lose all the time or you misplace, you can't find it, like your keys, and just find a home for it and just practice the habit of like putting it back.
Love that.
Because that habit, we often like, maybe we create a home, but we don't stick with it. That's the home, it stays there. So that's
number 1, pick an item.
Pick one item.
Pick one item that you constantly lose or that's always being misplaced and create a home for it. Okay, so that's number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2, maybe you have a Pinterest board. Maybe it's an Instagram collection. Just start collecting piles of things that you like, different spaces you like that inspire you, and start looking at the patterns. What's the patterns? Because then you're going to start to develop your style, develop the things that you enjoy. Maybe it's the color. Maybe, it's the style. Maybe it's the shape of the furniture. So, yeah, I think that's a way to start developing like what you want out of a space when you see the patterns of the things that you consistently like.
And envisioning your life before you. I love that. Creating the life that you want.
Yes.
What is number 3?
Number 3, write it down.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. Hello.
Like
Says
that.
the woman who writes autobiographies and novels and memoirs. Write it down. It makes sense. No, my therapist calls this a mental detox. Like first thing in the morning, literally gather your thoughts and do a mental detox. A journal entry doesn't need to be like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, in school, I feel like I hated journal time in school and that made me hate it. But sometimes I just wake up and I just write, I'm mad. And then I write, why am I mad? I'm mad because XYZ, XYZ.
Yes.
And literally it just ends up turning it. Because when you start asking yourself those questions, you're able to develop a sense of self-awareness, that something is off. There's some people who literally operate in dysfunction and chaos and don't believe or know that there's another way to operate.
Yeah. And then you find that a lot of the problems that you're having, like you already have the answers to. You already have the
Don't you love when you got all the... You don't got the answers, Sway. You don't have the answers.
So genuine. Yeah, you right. And you just like...
It was right, actually. You got all the answers. You got all the... I know that's right. I love that.
Yeah, just like writing down like the things that you don't like in your space or the things that you love about your space. And that'll help to just create discernment and just do that investigation.
So a list of what I love in my space and what I don't love in our space. And that can literally just lead the way for you to begin your journey to clearing space and organizing your life. So are there any apps or tools that you would recommend to better organize our lives?
I immediately thought of like business apps. So I'm like, oh no.
Are we a Google Calendar girl?
I love Google Calendar.
I love Google Calendar.
Oh my God. I make Google, and I've done this for years. My friends could attest to this for the past decade. When I meet with friends, like I make a Google Calendar.
Love it. I do it too. I love it. It's just something about seeing the confirmation on your like.
And then, you
VIP,
accepted? I know we talked about it. But you accepted the invitation.
Oh, yes, that means you've seen it. Maybe though, maybe.
Yes. I feel like Google Calendar. Oh, a tip for Google Calendar: like, say you have a meeting, or say you want to like schedule something that you need to do. Like say you need to do some work, in the notes, like write some of the things, like in what are the talking points,
like an agenda.
Yeah, like an agenda, or like say you have to run errands on Saturday and then you put on your calendar run errands, like put it in the event in the notes. I love doing that.
Yes.
Super helpful.
I love those tips. Okay.
It's so quick and easy.
So lastly, please share with the people where they can find and follow you.
I love it. So you can find Organized for Love on Instagram, Facebook, or you can go to our website, www.organizedforlove.com.
Are you on TikTok?
We are on TikTok.
I love a TikTok.
We are on TikTok. We're trying not to spread ourselves too thin, but I did just tell like my social media manager, like,
fun.
Let's go and take. I'm probably on it more than I post
just
on it.
Create. I do not even care about likes or anything. I just create. I've like turned into a mini videographer. Like you cannot tell me I'm like fire. Director X. You cannot tell me.
I know it's fire.
I'm not Director X. But I do want to do like a quick little speed round with you.
Okay. Oh.
In our last little minute, right?
I'm
so
ready.
we gonna do time. We're gonna time the seconds. We're gonna time a minute, right, real quick.
Oh my
and
God.
I am gonna just ask you, just kind of like a this or that kind of thing. Okay. So minute on the clock.
Okay.
Team Kim or Team Ye?
Team Kim.
Wendy's fries or McDonald's fries?
Wendy's.
Girl, I know that's right. Beyonce or Rihanna?
Rihanna. Oh my God, that was hard.
What? Okay. Day party or brunch?
Brunch.
Soca or Afro beats?
Afro beats.
Marshalls or Home Goods?
Home Goods.
Target or Walmart?
Target.
IKEA or the Container Store?
The Container Store.
Hermes or Chanel?
Hermes.
I know that's right. 1 year of free Uber rides or 1 year of free parking?
Uber rides.
All right. And that's you answered it. You answered everything. I know that's right.
Hard. You really caught me with the Kim and Kaya.
I'm like, let's see what team you want.
No, definitely. I mean, if we had to choose, like, bro, like we not about to like normalize abuse, because that is what's happening, and that's okay. We could go on.
That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
I'm sorry, because
I don't really have too many thoughts.
Black men defending him. I'm just like, y'all are all abusive. That's what it is.
Oh no,
y'all all secretly do not like women. That's what it's happening.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that per se. I definitely would just say that, you know, certain things are just being exploited. I feel like in the media, just certain things that go on in a lot of houses. That we do see, but you know, I don't really have too many opinions on the topic.
This is where I'm black. This is where we could talk about nuance, and I think I'm black and white with this a bit.
I think it's fair to say, like, when you're a woman at the end of the day, and I think that naturally as a woman, you're gonna always have that empathy and that compassion when it comes to another woman that's being, you know, that is, you know, visually in an unsafe situation, depending on the way that you look at it, according to certain people. But Shorty, you know, did kind of, you know, change everyone's minds about saying that we're not working enough. So, you know, let me actually get to work.
Oh,
you know, actually, let me take my butt to work. Right? So,
I feel
Rebecca,
that. I feel like. Go ahead.
I'm going to just say, you know, I'm really grateful to have you on today's episode. I learned so much about you. I've learned so much about your story. And most of all, I am inspired by your journey and just even figuring out a way to get more organized and understanding how organization is the key to being prepared. Organization and preparation are symbiotic.
Yes.
And I remember my grandfather told me one time, I asked him, I was like, Grandpa, it was a speaking engagement. I'm like, Grandpa, wish me luck. He said, you don't need luck, you need preparation.
Ooh.
And I was just like, man. And he was absolutely right. So just in summation, thank you for this conversation. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in today for episode 3 of Not So CEO. Yes. Definitely we'll be back with another episode, a new topic. And again, Rebecca, thank you. Like, I am so grateful
Thank
for
you
you
for
to
having
even just
me.
be here and just sharing all these gems. And just one more time, the people, they could find Rebecca on at handle Organize for Love on Facebook, Instagram.
Yes, TikTok.
TikTok. We're getting on the
TikTok.
TikTok, and definitely visit her on her website, www.organizeforlove.com. Are you accepting new clients? Or
Absolutely, yes.
where she's accepting new clients, you also get your life in order. Pun
Absolutely.
intended. Period. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Not So CEO Podcast. See you later. Bye.